I made a thread about Terry Crews, and I was a little surprised because it didn't get retweeted that much, and then it just kind of caught fire later. And he
Uh-huh.
blocked me about 2 hours after it came out, and I was like, "How the fuck?" I didn't tag him. I put the picture of the tweet, so that he wouldn't be notified.
He was on there searching his name.
Yeah,
Right?
I think maybe he's searching his name, but I think somebody might have switched a snitch because some lady who I think produces documentaries in Hollywood, some like her name is Lexi Alexander, and she kind of got at me about leave Terry Crews alone. I'm like, this is a big grown ass man. He doesn't need.
Did she add him in that?
Man, that's a big ass
Did she put his
man.
ad in there?
She didn't at him, but she had a blue check, and I think she's kind of well followed. So she quote tweeted me about you gotta leave Terry Crews alone, and then she kind of argued with me.
Right.
I hate when people do that.
Kind of dry stitched on you, huh?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's the end of the world to me, but it was just kind of funny that he blocked me that fast, like as soon as the tweet came out. But what the thread was about was, you guys have seen how he talked about that guy groping his junk, and then he came out, and after that happened, and first he didn't want to name the guy, and then he got a little emboldened for whatever reason and did name the guy. And then after he named the guy, he started doing all these weird tweets and threads about pathology in the black community that I found just weird. I'm like, why would you be getting groped by some powerful white guy? And then there's a whole rash of white people getting outed for sexual abuse and sexual harassment. And then your first instinct is to start throwing the black community under the bus. And what I was saying in the thread is, I don't think that's coincidental. I think when you're a black guy and you're trying to play the game, like, white women are protected a lot more than black guys are. So he kind of has to signal to the community at large, the white community, hey, look, I'm not going off the reservation that much. I'm just calling out one or two guys. I'm not someone that you have to worry about being a radical or making this a race thing, or not being a team player for team white anymore. So he kind of had to like signal a little bit that he was still willing to play ball and do some of the heavy lifting for white supremacy, because he had this thread. It was a couple of days ago. It was about Terry Crews calls out quote unquote pimp culture in the black community, and it was written up everywhere. It was written up in the Blaze, which is Tommy Lauren's ex site, the one that she used to be at, run by Glenn Beck.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rap had a coverage of it. Like, Terry Crews says pimp culture in the black community silences sexual abuse victims. And then the radio stations were talking about Terry Crews blaming pimp culture. And I was like, what does pimp culture have to do with a Hollywood exec grabbing your junk at a freaking white Hollywood party? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with the Terry Crews thing, he's doing what he can to get back into these circles, right? So it's funny that you made this thread, because I was actually going to talk about this on my show, because there's an episode of Desus and Meryl from off of Viceland for was about 3 weeks ago, and he was talking about how he takes these goofy ass jobs in Hollywood and doing all this slapstick comedy because he needs to take care of his family. So he has this mentality of, I need to do what I can to keep the damn on. So this doesn't surprise me that he would throw black folks up under the bus, because it's just showing that, like, hey, I can go along to get this damn paycheck, which is a sad sight.
We'll play the minstrel for food, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's sad.
We're the easiest targets too. We're the most defenseless targets. I mean, I know y'all all remember being in the playground. It's a bunch of dudes around, and one dude is just going in on the other guy, and he's sitting there taking it because he can't do nothing but take it. And then some other guy's over there laughing his ass off, and he's, "What are you laughing at?" And he takes his frustration with that guy out on the guy that he knows
as opposed to the guy who's really got his foot on his neck. And he was doing some weird stuff too, because he was just looking for any reason to get in the black community. Because he had another one, this site called Today in History tweeted on November 22nd, the movie Friday After Next is released, starring Ice Cube, Mike Epps, John Witherspoon, Cat Williams, and Terry Crews. Now, they've tweeted this on November 22nd, and how Today in History works is like every day they talk about something that happened in the past on that day. And then Terry Crews retweeted that saying, "Wow, this movie is a real lesson on the predator culture in the black community. It's funny because it was so real." It's like, wait, what are you like? You're looking for any reason to just bring up black community. I did a search Terry Crews and black community, and he was just going on any pretense. So like somebody brings up a movie he was in, he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that movie. It really reminded me of predator culture in the black community." And
like, who the hell watches that movie and thinks of predator culture?
Yeah, and like 15 years after the fact, he's just doing that much of a read. Like, you're just looking for any reason to kind of signal any way you can to let white people know, hey, look, I'm not getting radical, because I think he might have miscalculated. I think sometimes when you hang out with white people too much, you start thinking, oh, I get the perks or protection that they have. So maybe he saw all like these white women getting press and some white men getting press, calling out white male predators, and he was like, hey, this is my chance to do this. I'm not saying he did it just for publicity, but he probably thought, oh, I didn't like what this guy did. This is my chance to teach my abuser a lesson. And then maybe he got some kind of wake-up call that kind of made him see, oh, wait a minute, I think something happened that kind of let him know that you're not like these people. This is going to hurt you more. And because it's a very weird about face that he did, I think.
Exactly.
Well, you saw the reaction, though. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, bro.
I was going to say, you saw the reaction. Well, from what I was seeing of his reaction of when he came out initially, he didn't name the guy who touched him, and everybody was calling him, it didn't go the way it went for the other ladies, I think, from what I saw initially. It was, nobody was applauding his bravery for stepping forward. People were like, why didn't you say something? Or why you didn't deck the guy? Or why, So I think he didn't get the support that he initially thought he was going to get.
Yeah, that too. And the fan base too. You're right. The fan base didn't do it. I think the media kind of liked it, because I think they kind of like an emasculated black man, especially if he's a big black man. They kind of like that big gentle giant.
John Coffey.
John Coffey.
What's that?
I said John Coffey.
I don't remember John Coffey. Is that Green Mile?
Take my hand, boss.
Green Mile.
Green
Hold
Mile,
my
boss.
hand, boss.
That's what I was gonna say. Green Mile. I just didn't know that was his name. So you're on the same page. His name is John Coffey.
The character was, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what I was gonna say. The Green Mile, like they like that. Because you look at his roles, he's never he's either like married and the wife is like off screen or something. Like he's kind of he's like a eunuch. He's big and burly, but he's just kind of like a mascot, or he's never like hooking up with somebody or in the romantic pool.
Yeah, he's a harmless character. He's always
a harmless character. There's this TV trope called the Worf effect. And the Worf effect, y'all ever watch Star Trek Next Generation, that character Worf?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Worf was played by a black guy, but he was a Klingon. And the thing with Worf was he was supposed to be, like, when the show started, the badass of the show. But he would always end up kind of doing bitchy things, like, having to babysit like a weird alien or something. And it was supposed to be notable because, he's a badass, but he's doing something you wouldn't expect a badass to do, and it's supposed to be kind of like ironic, and the Worf effect was whenever a new villain would come onto the bridge or something, the immediate way to make him look like a badass was to have the first thing the villain would always do is smack the shit out of Worf. Each time. So it would be like somebody would come in the scene and it's like started becoming comical. Worf would just go and go, "This is wrong. I'm gonna take care of this." And he'd go and the guy would just backhand him, and everyone would just be like backhanding him left and right. And then the fans started calling it the Worf effect because what started happening was the instances of him getting bitched out were outweighing the instances of him doing something badass. Like people couldn't even remember the last thing he just did that was badass. So instead of making the villain look better, it just had all it did was just start making him look worse. So he just became just a bitch. He wasn't even
his character became increasingly neutered throughout the series.
That I feel like Terry Crews is like that.
He was the T-Dog of Star Trek, right? So he's T-Dog up in space.
Oh, T-Dog.
yeah. Basically, it's like his being a bitch just became his neutral.
Wow.
24/7 state. And
why they do us Terry like Crews, that, man? Why they do
I mean, technically, he's a Klingon, but we all knew he's black. We all know he's black. But I feel like Terry Crews is like that.
Klingon was the only black.
Yeah, I feel like Terry Crews's big shtick is, I'm a big dangerous guy, but look, I'm playing with a puppy, or look, I'm scared of a mouse. I'm jumping on a chair, and I feel like he's getting the Worf effect. Like he does so much stuff where he's playing against opposite type that's now become his norm. Like that's his energy now. Like I can't even remember the last badass thing he did. He's 90% of the stuff is the supposed out of character stuff, which is now just become his full-time character. You know what I'm saying? Like
there's even that picture with him with all the actors from the Expendables, and he's wearing like a bra. You know what I mean? He shows his chest and he's got a damn bra on and all this kind of goofy shit.
But what's interesting, the bra was photoshopped. The bra was photoshopped because
I didn't know that. Okay.
But what's interesting is how believable it was. There was no reason.
You wouldn't.
See, you didn't question it?
No,
you didn't question it. I didn't question it either. I didn't question it for a second. I was more surprised when I found out that the bra wasn't real.
Wasn't full. Yeah, I thought it was a part of his character.
No, me too.
Okay, there he is again.
But I always looked at Terry Crews kind of funny though. You know what I mean? I remember seeing him on. I think it was The View. That he had said something controversial on The View, so I went back and looked at it. And it wasn't really that controversial. They blew it up. But then he was talking to Whoopi, and he was saying how much Sylvester Stallone was a father figure to him. And I was just like,
damn,
dude, you like 40. You looking for a father figure at 40, man? You got the,
that is wild.
I don't know. Maybe that looked at that kind of like weird to me. Like it just,
but you know why he was in athletics. He was in athletics. He was in the NFL, and they do try to ingrain a lot of that in you, that father thing. They try to train you to think of the coach as, a white daddy, and I think people start carrying that with them. Like,
they looking for a white daddy in every white dude they see, I guess, huh?
Exactly. I think with this whole Terry Crews situation is why he didn't get so much support and respect is because, it's this big ass burly black dude having somebody, grab his junk in front of wife. And it's just like, that is the most emasculating thing ever. And it's just like, if you ain't going to stand on your own 2 feet,
sure.
Why should we try to prop you up and, offer you empathy and sympathy? You know what I'm saying? So,
yep. Especially from a man point of view. Even like the white dudes, the black dudes, everybody was in a total agreement of what you just said. It was like, hold on, man, you posted, I was worried I could go to jail. Like dudes don't even think about that until afterwards.
Exactly.
Like, man, I probably shouldn't have did that to him. But in the heat of the moment, a dude coming to grab
but it kind of shows Yeah, it shows where his head is at too, because he's like he said he didn't just say it's one thing to say I'm afraid I might go to jail, but what he specifically said is why would he think about the black man this big, this heavy doing it? He specifically said why would he think? So he was thinking about what would the impression be to the white people of me as a black guy, and I think the fact that that's what you thought of, I wouldn't want you to expect this jail thing more if he just said I'm worried about jail, but that wasn't what he actually said. He said I was worried about what they would think to see, like, the black guy. He would play to the stereotype of being aggressive.
Yeah, that's an important distinction.
So he was thinking self-neutering. And I'm thinking when you had that self-neutering energy, and I felt this in the corporate world. When you have that self-neutering energy, I think that energy. And I know it could sound like victim blaming. A lot of people can probably get on me about this, but I think that's what made that guy who groped them miscalculate. They can feel that you're castrating yourself. You don't want to be real masculine. Like, because his masculinity is a caricature of masculinity. It's cartoonish. You know, he's
I think they probably look at him like a giant teddy bear, like people in Hollywood circles, probably just look at him just because of how he carries himself, doing anything to keep them lights on and for a check. So
yeah, people feel your energy. Yeah, peak Mike Tyson, they would never have done that.
Ooh. No. And from what A-Double said, you said on Vice, he mentioned specifically that the things that he does for the paycheck. So he basically admitted that he whores himself out in order to make ends meet to a certain degree. And when people know that you're that vulnerable, they'll take advantage of you in whatever possible way that they can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, is that person on the job that the manager knows is the one who needs the job the most?
Mm-hmm.
Or is most afraid of losing the job? That's a lot of times if you have a bad manager, that's the guy that he's going to pick on the most.
No doubt. There's something else that happened with him on Twitter. Speaking of, the comments that he made throwing the black community into his personal situation. Somebody actually had called him out on that on his Twitter. And they said, throwing the black community under the bus to make yourself, to use as an example is corny or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. And then he says, I've always been corny to the black community, and I take that as a compliment. Thank you.
It's like, yes.
Wait, what?
I missed that one.
Actually, let's back up just a little bit to give it some context, because here's what happened. He said he had already been doing a lot of his weird segues into talking about the black community for like maybe a week now, where every chance he would get, he'd be like, yeah, pimp culture in the black community. Oh, someone brought up this movie I was in. Interesting movie. Reminds me of predator pathology in the black community. And he was doing all that weird stuff. The latest thing was, and this is wrong, just to get that out there, somebody called Sucker Free, who his @ is I be Sucker Free, said, I understand they were scared to come out, but then everyone was scared, even the faggot Terry Crews, and he had like a eye roll emoji, right? Now that's wrong. You shouldn't call him a faggot. That's no, don't do that. But Terry Crews jumped on it, which makes me think he does search his name, because the guy didn't @ Terry Crews, the same way he blocked me instantly. I think he does search his own name, which is kind of cheesy. I mean, I've done it, but I'm not on TV, so I feel like I'd actually imagine if I was on TV, I wouldn't search my own name.
Exactly.
But anyway, he quoted this guy as a quote tweet, and then in the quote tweet added, being sexually assaulted makes me gay, or in your own words, a faggot, parentheses, reprehensible term. Molesters use the same logic on their female or child victims, calling them bitches or hoes who ask for it. This mindset has gone unchallenged by the black community for too long. So he was taking this one guy, because I searched Terry Crews faggot after this happened, because I want to see if this was a widespread black thing, and it was just like one guy. So he uses this guy and he quotes him to make it seem like this is a black community thing of clowning him, and he's going back to that same thing about the black community, and that was the thing that led to what D was talking about somebody saying, "Hey, it's not fair to throw the whole black community under the bus," which led to the next thing he said that D was talking about, where he said, "I've always been corny to the black community, and I take that as a compliment. Thank you." And that's another signaling I felt he was doing to white people, like, "Hey, look, not only am I not a radical, black people don't even accept me. My whole life I've been called corny by the black community." And you guys know, when someone says that black people find them corny, what is that a euphemism for? That means like exactly white. He's signaling to white people who may be looking, "Hey, I'm an honorary white person. Even black people think so." That's how much of a threat I'm not. Like that was signaling. Like why would he display that? It's such a weird thing to say. And then he added, "I take that as a compliment." That's to let them know, hey, not only am I not accepted by the black community, not only have I never been accepted by the black community, because he put my whole life, he also adds, "I take that as a compliment," to let them know, hey, this is not bothering me. I'm not itching to get back in there.
I wear it with pride.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, but thank God they find me corny.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
If they love me, that means I would be. Because if I think he's from. Is he from Cali?
I was thinking Detroit or something.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Maybe Gary. He's from a rough town, though. I know he's from like Detroit or Gary or something like that.
And that's the funny thing. It might not necessarily be true. He might not even. It might not even really be the truth. He might just be saying it. For all we know, he might have grown up well comfortable.
Come on.
In the
a brother that played football at the highest level, made it to the NFL, was looked at as corny in the community.
I looked it up. It said come from Flint.
Out of here.
Come on.
It says from Flint, Michigan.
And his early work was in black stuff too. So it wasn't like, even in Hollywood, wasn't he doing like the Friday movies and stuff like that?
Hey, Adrian.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to make Flint hold that L in that next L segment of your podcast.
Okay.
They're gonna have to take an L for Terry Crews because he ain't repping Flint right at all.
He ain't, but I don't know if I can give him that L because they got water trouble, so I don't want to, come down on them too hard,
Yeah.
So.